Maya Rodriguez wiped down the same table for the third time in 10 minutes. The coffee stain had been gone after the first wipe, but she needed something to do with her hands. Tony's diner was dead quiet at 2 in the morning, with only the hum of the old refrigerator and the buzz of the flickering light above booth number 3, keeping her company. She glanced at the clock on the wall. Still 4 hours left on her shift. 4 more hours of pretending she wasn't thinking about the eviction notice folded up in her back pocket. 4 more hours of ignoring the way her stomach cramped from eating only crackers for the past 2 days. The bell above the door chimed, and Maya looked up to see an old man shuffling in from the cold Detroit night. His clothes were dirty and torn, layers of mismatched jackets and sweaters that couldn't quite hide how thin he was. His gray hair stuck out in all directions, and his face was covered with a scraggly beard. He stood in the doorway for a moment, like he wasn't sure if he should come in or turn around and leave. Maya straightened up and grabbed a menu. "Good evening, sir. Sit anywhere you like." The man looked around the empty diner and chose a booth near the window. He moved slowly, like his joints hurt. When he sat down, Maya noticed his hands were shaking. "What can I get you tonight?" she asked, setting the menu down in front of him. The old man stared at the menu for a long time. Maya could see him reading the prices, his lips moving silently, as he added up numbers in his head. Finally, he looked up at her with tired brown eyes. "I don't suppose you folks need any help around here tonight?" he asked. "I could wash dishes, sweep floors, take out trash. I'm a hard worker, I promise." Maya felt her heart sink. She knew that look. She'd seen it in her own mirror too many times lately. "I'm sorry, sir. We don't have any work right now." The man nodded and started to get up. "That's okay, I understand." "Wait," Maya said quickly. "You don't have to leave. You can sit here as long as you want. It's warm inside." The man settled back into the booth. "Thank you, miss. That's very kind." He paused, then added quietly, "I haven't eaten in 2 days. I was hoping maybe I could work for just a small meal. Nothing fancy." Maya looked toward the kitchen where Pete Kowalski was reading his newspaper and drinking coffee. Pete was the night manager, and he wasn't known for his generous heart. She'd seen him kick out homeless people before, sometimes not very nicely. "Let me see what I can do," Maya said. She walked over to Pete, who didn't look up from his paper. "Pete, there's a man out there who's hungry. He wants to work for food." Pete finally looked up, annoyed. "We don't run a charity, Maya. You know that. He seems like a nice old man. He's not causing any trouble. The answer is no. We can't have bums hanging around. It's bad for business." Pete went back to his newspaper. Maya stood there for a moment, thinking. She looked back at the old man, who was staring out the window, at the empty street. Then she made a decision. She went to the staff refrigerator and pulled out a small container. Inside was a turkey sandwich she'd made for herself earlier, saving it for her break. It wasn't much, just some leftover turkey and cheese on bread, but it was all she had. Maya put the sandwich on a plate and poured a cup of fresh coffee. She carried both over to the old man's table. "Here you go, sir," she said, setting the food down. The man looked up in surprise. "I can't pay for this." "It's on the house," Maya said. "Everyone deserves a hot meal." The old man's eyes filled with tears. "I don't know what to say. Thank you." "You don't have to say anything. Just eat." Maya watched as the man took his first bite. He ate slowly, like he was trying to make it last. Between bites, he sipped the coffee and closed his eyes, savoring the warmth. "This is the best sandwich I've ever had," he said. Maya smiled. "It's just turkey and cheese." "No," the man said, looking at her seriously. "It's much more than that." Pete looked over from behind the counter and frowned. "Maya, what are you doing?" "Just serving a customer," she said. "That bum better not cause any problems." The old man heard this and started to stand up. "I should go. I don't want to get you in trouble, miss." "You're not in trouble," Maya said firmly. "You're a paying customer, and you have every right to be here." She gave Pete a hard look. Pete shrugged and went back to his newspaper. The old man finished his sandwich and drank the last of his coffee. He sat back in the booth and looked at Maya with curiosity. "Why did you help me?" he asked. "You don't know me. I could be anyone." Maya thought about it for a moment. My grandmother used to say that when you share what little you have, you become richer than people who hoard their wealth. I guess I believe that. Your grandmother sounds like a wise woman. She was. She raised me after my parents died. She worked 3 jobs to keep us going, but she always found ways to help other people too. She said that's what makes us human. The old man nodded slowly. What's your name, if you don't mind me asking? Maya Rodriguez. It's very nice to meet you, Maya Rodriguez. I'm Frank Sullivan. They shook hands across the table. Frank's hand was rough and calloused, but his grip was firm. Well, Frank Sullivan, it's nice to meet you too. Frank reached into his pocket and pulled out something small and metallic. It looked like a tiny silver coin, but with strange markings Maya had never seen before. I want you to have this, Frank said, placing it on the table. Maya looked at the object. I can't take anything from you. You already don't have much. Please. It's not worth anything to most people, but it might be valuable to you someday. Maya picked up the small metal piece. It was warm to the touch and seemed to have a faint glow, though that might have been the light from the diner. She slipped it into her apron pocket. Thank you, she said. Frank stood up slowly and put on his old coat. No, thank you, Maya Rodriguez. You've given me something I haven't had in a long time. What's that? Hope that there are still good people in the world. Frank walked to the door and turned back one more time. Take care of yourself, and remember what your grandmother taught you. You never know when kindness might change everything. With that, he stepped out into the cold night and disappeared into the darkness. Maya watched him go, wondering if she'd ever see him again. She had no idea that her simple act of kindness had just set in motion events that would change not only her life, but the future of all humanity. Maya pulled her beat-up Honda into the parking lot of Tony's diner and stopped dead. The lot was packed with cars she'd never seen before. Expensive black sedans, news vans with satellite dishes, and people in suits walking around with clipboards and serious faces. She sat in her car for a moment, confused. It was Thursday evening, her regular shift time, but the diner looked like it was hosting some kind of important event. Through the windows, she could see camera crews setting up equipment and reporters checking their hair in small mirrors. Maya grabbed her purse and walked toward the entrance. A man in a dark suit stepped in front of her. Excuse me, miss. This area is restricted right now. I work here, Maya said. I'm supposed to start my shift in 10 minutes. The man spoke into a small device on his collar. We have Maya Rodriguez here. He listened to something Maya couldn't hear, then nodded. You can go in. They're waiting for you. Maya pushed through the door and stopped. The diner had been transformed. Professional lighting equipment filled the corners, and people with expensive cameras were positioned around the room. Pete stood behind the counter, looking overwhelmed, still wearing his usual stained apron, but now surrounded by people in business clothes. Maya, Pete called out when he saw her. Thank God you're here. These people have been asking for you all day. A woman in a sharp blue suit walked over to Maya. She was tall and professional looking, with short blonde hair and kind eyes behind stylish glasses. Ms. Rodriguez? I'm Amanda Pierce. I work for Sullivan Industries. We need to talk. Maya felt confused. Sullivan? Like Frank Sullivan? The old man from the other night? Amanda smiled. Yes, exactly like Frank Sullivan. Could we sit down somewhere private? Pete pointed to a booth in the back corner. You can use booth 7. I'll make sure nobody bothers you. Maya followed Amanda to the booth, her mind racing. She couldn't understand what was happening or why all these people were here because of Frank. Amanda opened a leather folder and pulled out several photographs. The first one showed Frank, but he looked completely different. His hair was clean and styled. He wore an expensive suit, and he was standing in front of a tall building with Sullivan Industries written on it. This is Franklin J. Sullivan, Amanda said. He's one of the richest men in America. He owns Sullivan Industries, which makes computer technology and medical equipment. Maya stared at the photo. That's impossible. Frank was homeless. He was hungry. He didn't have any money. Was pretending, Amanda explained. For the past 6 months, Mr. Sullivan has been living on the streets. He wanted to understand what it's like to be poor and homeless in America. He wanted to see how people would treat him when he had nothing. Maya felt dizzy. Why would he do that? Because he's looking for something very specific. He's looking for people who show real kindness even when they have nothing to gain from it. Amanda leaned forward. Most people ignored him or treated him badly. But you didn't. You gave him your own food when you barely had enough for yourself. It was just a sandwich, Maya said quietly. It was much more than that. You showed him that good people still exist in the world. That's exactly what he was hoping to find. Maya remembered the small metal object Frank had given her. She reached into her purse and pulled it out. He left me this. I thought it was just some old coin. Amanda's eyes widened when she saw it. Ms. Rodriguez, do you have any idea what that is? Some kind of metal thing with weird markings? That's a quantum communicator. It's worth more money than most people make in their entire lives. It's made from materials that don't exist anywhere on Earth. Maya almost dropped the device. What? Do you mean don't exist on Earth? Amanda took a deep breath. This is where things get complicated. Mr. Sullivan doesn't just run a technology company. He's part of something much bigger, something that most people don't know about. What kind of something? The kind that involves visitors from other planets. Maya felt like the room was spinning. Are you telling me that aliens are real? Very real. And they've been watching Earth for a long time. Mr. Sullivan has been working with certain government agencies to monitor the situation. Maya put her head in her hands. This is crazy. This can't be real. I know it's a lot to take in. But Mr. Sullivan would like to meet with you tomorrow. He wants to explain everything himself. He thinks you might be able to help with something very important. Help with what? Something that could affect the future of everyone on Earth. Maya looked around the diner. The reporters were still setting up their equipment, and she could see Pete trying to answer questions from several people at once. Everything felt surreal, like she was living in some kind of movie. What happens if I say no? Maya asked. Nothing happens. You go back to your normal life. Mr. Sullivan will understand, but he hopes you'll at least hear what he has to say. Maya thought about her normal life, the eviction notice in her pocket, the empty refrigerator at home, the bills she couldn't pay. Maybe her normal life wasn't so great after all. If I meet with him, does that mean I have to do whatever he wants? Absolutely not. You're free to walk away at any time. Mr. Sullivan just wants to give you some information and ask if you're interested in helping. The choice is completely yours. Maya picked up the quantum communicator and turned it over in her hands. In the light of the diner, she could see that the strange markings seemed to move slightly, like they were alive. What exactly does this thing do? She asked. It allows communication across vast distances that would normally be impossible to cross. How vast? Amanda smiled. The kind of distances between planets? Maya felt her heart racing. And Frank just gave this to me? Why? Because you proved to him that humans can be good, even when no one is watching, even when being good costs them something they can't afford to lose. Maya remembered her grandmother's words about sharing what little you have. She'd never imagined that following that advice might lead to something like this. Where does Mr. Sullivan want to meet? At Sullivan Industries headquarters in downtown Detroit. Tomorrow at 10 in the morning, if that works for you. Maya nodded slowly. I'll be there. Amanda smiled and closed her folder. Excellent. A car will pick you up at your apartment at 9:30. How do you know where I live? Mr. Sullivan has been very worried about you since your meeting. He wanted to make sure you were safe. As Amanda stood to leave, Maya called after her. Amanda, what you said about this affecting everyone on Earth, how serious is that? Amanda turned back, and for the first time, Maya saw worry in her eyes. Very serious, Maya. More serious than you can imagine. After Amanda left, Maya sat in the booth holding the quantum communicator. Outside, she could see the news crews packing up their equipment. Soon the diner would be back to normal, and she'd be serving coffee and burgers like nothing had happened. But everything had changed. In less than a week, she'd gone from giving her last meal to a homeless stranger to holding alien technology and being invited to meet one of the richest men in America. Maya thought about her grandmother again. Her grandmother had always said that kindness was the most powerful force in the world. Maybe she'd been right in ways Maya was only beginning to understand. Maya stood in front of the Sullivan Industries building and looked up. The glass tower stretched so high she couldn't see the top. She'd lived in Detroit her whole life, but she'd never been inside one of the fancy downtown buildings. The black car that had picked her up was unlike anything she'd ever ridden in. Leather seats, quiet engine, and a driver who wore a suit nicer than anything Maya owned. Now she stood on the sidewalk feeling very small and out of place. Amanda Pierce appeared at the building's entrance and waved. "Maya, right on time, come on up." The lobby was huge, with marble floors and a ceiling that seemed to go up forever. Security guards in uniforms watched everyone who came and went. Amanda led Maya to a special elevator that required a key card to operate. "Mr. Sullivan's office is on the 40th floor, Amanda said as they rode up. "He's very excited to meet with you properly." The elevator opened into a hallway that looked more like a museum than an office. Expensive paintings hung on the walls, and the carpet was so thick Maya's shoes sank into it. Frank Sullivan's office was bigger than Maya's entire apartment. Floor-to-ceiling windows showed the whole city spread out below. Frank stood behind a massive wooden desk, but now he looked like the man in the photographs Amanda had shown her. Clean, well-dressed, and definitely not homeless. "Maya," Frank said, walking around the desk with his arms open. "I'm so glad you came." "Mr. Sullivan," Maya said, still feeling confused. "I have to ask, was everything you told me the other night a lie?" Frank's smile faded. "The situation was fake, but my feelings weren't. The hunger I felt was real because I hadn't eaten in 2 days. The gratitude I felt when you helped me was completely genuine. But why did you lie to me?" "Because I needed to know who you really are. When people know I have money, they act differently. They tell me what they think I want to hear. But you didn't know, so you showed me your true heart." Maya sat down in one of the comfortable chairs across from Frank's desk. "Amanda told me some things yesterday that sound impossible, about aliens and other planets." Frank nodded seriously. "I know it's hard to believe, but I need you to understand the truth about what's happening on Earth. It's not what most people think." Another woman entered the office. She was wearing a military uniform with insignia Maya didn't recognize. Her hair was pulled back in a tight bun, and she carried herself like someone used to giving orders. "Maya, this is Captain Lisa Barnes," Frank said. "She works with a special government program that most people don't know exists." Captain Barnes shook Maya's hand firmly. "It's an honor to meet you, Maya. What you did the other night was observed by more than just Mr. Sullivan." "What do you mean?" Captain Barnes opened a folder and pulled out several photographs. The first one showed Tony's diner from the outside. But the image was strange. It looked like it had been taken from very high up, maybe from space. "These pictures were taken by monitoring equipment that watches Earth from orbit," Captain Barnes explained. "But the equipment doesn't belong to any human government." Maya stared at the photos. "Who does it belong to?" "A group called the Hegemony. They're a confederation of 7 different alien species. They've been watching Earth for 50 years. Frank leaned forward in his chair. "The Hegemony is trying to decide what to do about humanity. We're a young species that's developing technology very quickly. Some of them see us as a potential threat." "A threat to what?" "To the peace they've maintained in this part of the galaxy for thousands of years," Captain Barnes said. "They've seen young species before that became aggressive and dangerous as they developed space travel. They don't want that to happen again." Maya felt overwhelmed. "So what do they want to do about it?" Frank and Captain Barnes exchanged a look. "They have 3 options," Frank said. "They can invite humanity to join the galactic community. They can isolate us by preventing us from developing space travel, or they can eliminate us entirely." "Eliminate us?" "Make sure we never become a threat to anyone," Captain Barnes said quietly. Maya stood up and walked to the window. The city looked so normal from up here. People going about their daily lives not knowing that aliens were watching them from space. How do you know all this? She asked. Because 15 years ago they made contact with Earth's governments, Frank said. Not official contact that the public knows about. Secret contact with a few key leaders. They told us they were evaluating humanity. And so far we're not doing very well, Captain Barnes said. They've been running tests, watching how we treat each other, especially how we treat the weakest members of our society. They've seen wars, poverty, people being cruel to each other for no reason. Frank stood up and joined Maya at the window. That's why I was living on the streets. I was trying to find evidence that humans can be good, that we deserve a chance. Most people ignored me or treated me badly, Frank continued. Some were actively cruel. But then I met you. You gave me your last meal even though you were hungry yourself. You treated me with dignity when you had no reason to. Maya turned away from the window. One person being nice doesn't make up for all the bad things humans do. No, but it proves that humans have the capacity for good, Captain Barnes said. The hegemony knows that young species can change. They just need to see evidence that we're moving in the right direction. Amanda entered the office carrying a tray with coffee and sandwiches. As she set it down, she added, "There's something else you should know, Maya. Your act of kindness was witnessed by one of them." "One of who?" "One of the hegemony observers. They have agents living among us disguised as humans. One of them saw what you did at the diner." Maya sat back down, feeling dizzy. "Are you saying an alien saw me give Frank a sandwich?" "Dr. Zeff of the Altruian species," Frank said. "He's been living in Detroit for 2 years, studying human behavior. He was in the diner that night, sitting in the corner booth." Maya tried to remember. "The man reading a book?" "That's him. He reported back to the Hegemony Council that he had witnessed a human perform a genuinely selfless act. It was the first positive report they'd received in months." Captain Barnes pulled out another photograph. This one showed a tall, thin man with unusual eyes. He looked human, but something about him seemed different. "Dr. Zeff has been arguing that humans deserve a chance. But the other 6 species on the council aren't convinced. They think your kindness was just an exception." Maya looked at the photo of Dr. Zeff. "What happens now?" Frank sat back down at his desk. "The hegemony has decided to conduct a final test. They're going to choose 12 humans to represent our entire species. These 12 people will be taken to their ships and evaluated." "Evaluated how?" "They'll be put in situations designed to reveal their true character. How they react will determine the fate of everyone on Earth." Maya felt her heart racing. "And you want me to be one of the 12? Dr. Zeff specifically requested you," Captain Barnes said. "He believes you represent the best of what humanity can be." "But I'm nobody special. I'm just a waitress." Frank smiled. "That's exactly why you're special. You're not trying to impress anyone or gain anything for yourself. You just do what's right because it's right." Maya stood up and walked around the office, trying to process everything she'd learned. Aliens were real. They were watching Earth. They were deciding whether to let humanity live or die. And somehow, her decision to give a sandwich to a hungry man had put her in the middle of it all. "What if I say no?" she asked. "Then we'll find someone else," Frank said. "But Maya, I believe you're our best chance. You have something that most people have lost." "What's that?" "The ability to care about others more than yourself. In a universe full of species that put their own interest first, that makes you incredibly rare." Maya thought about her grandmother again. All those years ago, her grandmother had taught her to share what little she had. Now she was being asked to risk everything to help save the world. "When do they want to do this test?" she asked. "Captain," Barnes checked her watch. "The hegemony ships will arrive in 72 hours. We need your answer by tomorrow morning." Maya looked out the window at the city below. Somewhere down there, people were going about their normal lives. They were working, laughing, arguing, loving, and living. They had no idea that their future depended on 12 strangers passing a test designed by aliens. "I need to think about this," Maya said. "Of course," Frank said. "Take all the time you need. But remember, Maya, sometimes the most important decisions are the ones we make when we're scared. Maya woke up to the sound of helicopters flying overhead. She looked out her apartment window and saw military vehicles moving down the street. On every television channel, news reporters were talking about the same thing. Giant ships had appeared in the sky above major cities around the world. The ships were enormous, bigger than anything humans had ever built. They hung in the air without making any sound, casting shadows over the cities below. The news reporters called them unidentified flying objects, but Maya knew exactly what they were. Her phone rang. It was Amanda Pierce. Maya, are you watching the news? Yes. They're here, aren't they? The hegemony ships arrived 3 hours ago. They've made contact with world leaders. Maya, we need you to come to the meeting point right away. Maya had made her decision the night before. She'd walked around her neighborhood looking at the families in their homes, the children playing in the parks, the elderly people sitting on their porches. She thought about all the good people she knew, all the acts of kindness she'd witnessed over the years. Humanity wasn't perfect, but they deserved a chance. I'll be ready in 20 minutes, Maya said. The meeting point was an airfield outside Detroit. Maya arrived to find 11 other people waiting near a large military transport plane. They were all very different from each other. Some wore expensive suits, others were in military uniforms, and a few were dressed in regular clothes like Maya. Captain Barnes introduced everyone. There was Dr. Rachel Kim, a scientist who had won awards for her medical research. Colonel Marcus Webb had served in 3 different wars and received medals for bravery. Ambassador Helen Clark had worked as a diplomat for 20 years. Maya felt very small compared to these accomplished people, but there were also 3 other, ordinary citizens. Kevin Walsh was a former Army medic who now worked as a paramedic in Chicago. Sophia Martinez taught elementary school in Arizona. Tony Chen ran a small restaurant in San Francisco and was known for feeding homeless people for free. Why were we chosen? Sophia asked Captain Barnes. Each of you was selected for different reasons, Captain Barnes explained. Some of you represent humanity's achievements in science, military service, and diplomacy. Others represent our capacity for everyday kindness and compassion. Dr. Kim looked at Maya with curiosity. What did you do? I gave a sandwich to a homeless man, Maya said simply. Dr. Kim raised an eyebrow. That's it? That's it, Maya replied. Colonel Webb laughed, but not in a mean way. Sometimes the simplest things are the most important. A strange humming sound filled the air. Everyone looked up to see a smaller ship descending from one of the large vessels overhead. It was silver and sleek, with no visible wings or engines. It landed silently on the airfield. A section of the ship's hull opened like a door, and 3 figures stepped out. 2 of them looked almost human, but their eyes were larger than normal, and their skin had a slight blue tint. The 3rd figure was definitely not human. It was tall and thin, with 4 arms and skin that looked like tree bark. That's Dr. Zeff, Captain Barnes whispered to Maya. The Altruian who saw you at the diner. Dr. Zeff approached the group of humans. When he spoke, his voice sounded strange, like it was coming from far away. Greetings, representatives of humanity. I am Dr. Zeff of the Altruian Science Council. These are my colleagues, Commander Vex of the Dragnari Military Union and Overmind Kala of the Nixari Collective. Commander Vex looked like a warrior. His blue skin was covered with scars, and his eyes were cold and suspicious. Overmind Kala was the strangest of all. She seemed to be female, but her head was larger than a normal human head, and Maya could swear she heard whispers coming from her direction. You have been chosen to represent your species in the final evaluation. Dr. Zeff continued. You will be taken aboard our vessel and subjected to 3 tests. These tests will determine whether humanity is ready to join the galactic community. Ambassador Clark stepped forward. What kind of tests? Commander Vex answered, and his voice sounded like gravel. Tests of character, tests of courage, tests of wisdom. Your species claims to be civilized, but your actions suggest otherwise. What do you mean? Dr. Kim asked. Over mind, Kayla spoke, and Maya heard multiple voices speaking at once. Humans fight. Wars over resources they could share. Humans allow their own kind to suffer while others have plenty. Humans destroy their planet for short-term gain. Maya felt anger rising in her chest. Humans also help each other. We sacrifice for strangers. We create beautiful art and music. We explore space because we want to learn, not because we want to conquer. Dr. Zeff looked at Maya with interest. You are the waitress who gave her meal to a stranger. Yes. Do you believe your act of kindness represents all of humanity? Maya thought carefully before answering. No. But I believe it represents what humanity can be when we choose to be our best selves. Commander Vex snorted. One act of kindness cannot erase centuries of violence. Maybe not, Maya said. But it proves that we're capable of choosing kindness over selfishness. The 12 humans were led aboard the alien ship. Inside, everything was white and smooth, with soft lighting that seemed to come from everywhere, at once. They were taken to a large room with comfortable chairs arranged in a circle. Dr. Zeff stood in the center of the circle. Before we begin the tests, you should understand what is at stake. If you pass, humanity will be invited to join the hegemony. You will have access to advanced technology and knowledge. You will be protected from hostile species. And if we fail? Colonel Webb asked. Commander Vex smiled, showing sharp teeth. If you fail, humanity will be contained on Earth permanently. No space travel, no contact with other worlds. Is that the worst option? Tony Chen asked. Over mind. Kayla's multiple voices spoke together. No. If you fail badly enough, if you prove that humans are truly dangerous, then humanity will be eliminated entirely. The room fell silent. Maya felt the weight of 7 billion lives pressing down on her shoulders. The first test begins now, Dr. Zeff announced. The walls of the room disappeared, replaced by what looked like a city street. But it wasn't a normal city. Buildings were on fire, people were running and screaming, and there was smoke everywhere. This is a simulation, Dr. Zeff explained. But your choices will be real. You are in a city that is being evacuated due to a natural disaster. You have one rescue vehicle that can save only half of the people who need help. How do you choose who lives and who dies? Maya looked around at her fellow humans. Some of them immediately started discussing strategy and logistics. Ambassador Clark began organizing everyone into teams. Dr. Kim was calculating how to maximize the number of people they could save. But Maya noticed something the others had missed. In the simulation, there were children separated from their parents, elderly people who couldn't move quickly, and injured people who needed immediate help. While the others were focused on the big picture, Maya started moving toward the people who needed help right away. Kevin Walsh, the paramedic, noticed what Maya was doing and joined her. You're right, he said. We can't save everyone, but we can make sure nobody dies alone. Sophia Martinez also came over. The children are terrified. They need someone to comfort them while the others organize the evacuation. As Maya knelt down to help a crying child in the simulation, she realized something important. This wasn't just a test of how many people they could save. It was a test of how they would treat the people they couldn't save. Commander Vex was watching them closely, his cold eyes taking in every detail. Overmind, Kayla was making notes on a strange device. But Dr. Zeff was watching Maya specifically, and she thought she saw approval in his alien features. The first test continued for what felt like hours. When it finally ended, the simulation faded away and they were back in the White Room. How did we do? Dr. Kim asked. That remains to be seen, Commander Vex said. You saved 63% of the population, an acceptable number. But that's not what we were really measuring, Dr. Zeff added. We were measuring how you treated the people you couldn't save. Some species would abandon them to save resources. Others would simply ignore their suffering. Maya understood. You wanted to see if we would show compassion even when we couldn't help. Exactly. And you did. All of you, in different ways. Overmind, Kayla's voices whispered together. The first test is complete. Prepare for the second test. Maya looked around at her fellow humans. They had passed the first test, but she could see the stress on their faces. 2 more tests remained, and the fate of humanity hung in the balance. The second test began immediately. The White Room transformed into what looked like a research laboratory. There were computers everywhere, and tables covered with strange devices that Maya had never seen before. Dr. Zeff stood in the center of the room holding a small glowing cube. This device contains the cure for a disease that kills millions of humans each year. However, the technology also has military applications. It could be used to create powerful weapons. He placed the cube on a table in front of the 12 humans. You have 1 hour to decide. Do you take the technology and risk it being used for war? Or do you leave it and let people continue to die from disease? Maya watched as the other humans immediately began debating. Ambassador Clark argued that they had a responsibility to save lives even if there were risks. Colonel Webb worried that the technology would eventually be stolen and used against humanity. Dr. Kim wanted to study the device to understand how it worked, but some of the humans seemed more interested in what the technology could do for them. Personally, Dr. Martin Ross, a businessman who owned several companies, kept talking about patents and profits. Senator Patricia Hayes was already planning how to use the discovery to advance her political career. We could become the most powerful nation on Earth, Senator Hayes said to Colonel Webb. Think about the military advantages. Maya felt sick listening to them. They were talking about a cure for disease, something that could save millions of lives, and all some of them could think about was money and power. Kevin Walsh, the paramedic, was examining the device carefully. Look, I've seen kids die from diseases that we can't cure. If this thing can help them, we have to take it. But what if it ends up killing more people than it saves? Sofia Martinez asked. What if someone turns it into a weapon? The debate continued for 45 minutes. Maya noticed that the 3 alien judges were watching carefully, but they seemed most interested in the humans who weren't talking. Maya, Tony Chen, and Sofia Martinez had been quiet for most of the discussion. With 15 minutes left, Maya finally spoke up. Can I ask Dr. Zeff a question? Dr. Zeff nodded. If we take this technology, will your people help us use it safely? Will you teach us how to make sure it's only used for healing? Dr. Zeff's large eyes seemed to shine. An interesting question. What makes you think we would help? Because you're testing us to see if we're ready to join your community. If we pass your tests, that means we become part of your group, right? And groups help each other. Commander. Vex spoke harshly. Most species think only of what they can take from the hegemony. You are the first to ask what we might give. Maya looked around at her fellow humans. What if we approach this differently? Instead of arguing about whether to take the technology, what if we talk about how to use it responsibly? Tony Chen nodded. Maya's right. The question isn't whether we should help sick people. The question is how we can help them without creating new problems. Slowly, the focus of the discussion changed. Instead of arguing about risks and benefits, the humans began working together to find solutions. Dr. Kim suggested creating international oversight committees. Ambassador Clark proposed sharing the technology with all nations equally. Colonel Webb recommended security measures to prevent misuse. Even Senator Hayes and Dr. Ross began contributing useful ideas instead of just thinking about personal gain. When the hour was up, they had developed a detailed plan for using the technology safely and responsibly. Dr. Zeff picked up the cube. Interesting. Most species either take the technology immediately or reject it entirely. You are the first to ask how to use it wisely. The laboratory disappeared, and they were back, in the White Room. Overmind, Kayla's multiple voices whispered together before she spoke. The second test revealed much about human nature. Some of you initially thought of personal gain, but you were influenced by the wisdom of others. This suggests humans can learn and grow. Commander Vex looked less hostile than before. Your species shows promise, but one final test remains. The room changed again. This time, Maya found herself standing in what looked like a space station. Through large windows, she could see Earth far below. beautiful and blue against the black of space. But something was wrong. Alarms were blaring and red lights were flashing everywhere. "There has been an accident," Dr. Zeff announced. "This space station is failing. There are 60 beings aboard, both human and alien. You have enough escape pods to save 40 beings. You must decide who lives and who dies." Maya's heart sank. This was the worst kind of test, the kind where there were no good answers. The 12 humans spread out through the station to assess the situation. Maya found herself in a medical bay where several injured beings lay on beds. Some were human, but others were clearly alien. One looked like Dr. Zeff, with the same blue-tinted skin and large eyes. Another was small and furry, like an animal, but clearly intelligent. Dr. Kim was already working to treat the injured. "Some of these people can't be moved safely," she said. "If we put them in escape pods, they'll die anyway." Maya knelt next to one of the injured aliens. It was conscious and looking at her with fear in its eyes. "It's okay," Maya said softly. "We're going to help you." The alien made soft clicking sounds that Maya somehow understood as gratitude. Kevin Walsh appeared beside her. "Maya, we have a problem. Some of the others are saying we should save humans first. They think the aliens are less important." Maya felt anger rising in her chest. "That's wrong. A life is a life, whether it's human or alien." "I agree with you, so do Sophia and Tony, but Dr. Ross and Senator Hayes are arguing pretty loudly." Maya stood up and walked to where the argument was taking place. Dr. Ross was speaking to a group of the other humans. "We have to think strategically," he was saying. "If humans survive, we can rebuild. If we save too many aliens, humanity might not have enough representatives left." "That's not how this works," Maya said firmly. "We're not supposed to choose based on species. We're supposed to choose based on who needs help most." Senator Hayes looked at Maya dismissively. "You're just a waitress. You don't understand the bigger picture." "Maybe I don't understand politics or business," Maya said, "but I understand what's right and what's wrong. And leaving people to die because they're different from us is wrong." Sophia Martinez stepped beside Maya. "She's right. If we pass this test by choosing to let aliens die, then we don't deserve to pass." Tony Chen joined them. "In my restaurant, I feed everyone who's hungry. I don't ask what country they're from or what they look like. Hungry is hungry," Kevin Walsh nodded. "When I'm treating patients, I don't see race or nationality. I see people who need help." Slowly, other humans began to join Maya's group. Colonel Webb, despite his military background, agreed that they should save those most in need, regardless of species. Dr. Kim was already treating both humans and aliens equally. Even Ambassador Clark, who had been thinking diplomatically, realized that true diplomacy meant treating all beings with equal respect. In the end, only Dr. Ross and Senator Hayes continued to argue for saving humans first. But they were outnumbered, and eventually agreed to follow the group's decision. The 12 humans worked together to identify the 40 beings who could be saved safely. They chose based on medical need, chance of survival, and ability to help others. When they were done, the list included both humans and aliens in roughly equal numbers. As the escape pods launched, Maya found herself in a pod with 3 aliens and 2 other humans. One of the aliens was the small furry being she had comforted earlier. It was still weak, but it reached out and gently touched Maya's hand. The test ended and they were back in the White Room. The 3 alien judges stood before them, and for the first time Maya couldn't read their expressions. Dr. Zeff spoke first. "In the final test, you were forced to make the hardest choice any species can face. You had to decide who deserves to live." Commander Vex's voice was softer than before. "Most species choose to save their own kind first. It is natural, expected, even logical." Overmind Kala's voices whispered together before she spoke. "But you chose differently. You chose to save those most in need, regardless of whether they were human or alien. This is unprecedented." Maya felt her heart pounding. "Did we pass?" Dr. Zeff looked at each of the 12 humans in turn. "That decision will be made by the full Hegemony Council. But I will tell you this. In all my years of testing young species, I have never seen a group make the choice you made today." What happens now? Colonel Webb asked. Now we wait for the Council's decision, Commander Vex said. It will take some time for them to deliberate. As the humans were led to a waiting area, Maya thought about everything that had happened. They had faced 3 impossible tests and somehow managed to work together to find solutions. But she still didn't know if it would be enough to save humanity. All she could do was hope that kindness, compassion, and the willingness to help others would be enough to prove that humans deserved a place among the stars. Maya sat in the waiting room aboard the Hegemony ship, staring out at the stars. The 12 humans had been waiting for 6 hours while the Alien Council made their decision about humanity's future. Some of her fellow representatives were pacing, nervously. Others sat quietly, lost in thought. Dr. Kim was reading from a device one of the aliens had given her, learning about Hegemony medical technology. Colonel Webb was discussing military cooperation with Kevin Walsh. But Maya just looked out at the endless black space dotted with distant suns and wondered what her grandmother would have thought about all this. Maya, Sophia Martinez said, sitting down beside her. Do you think we did enough? I don't know, Maya replied honestly. I keep thinking about that last test. We had to choose who would live and who would die. How do you make a choice like that? You make it the same way you decided to give your sandwich to Frank, Tony Chen said, joining their conversation. You think about what's right, not what's easy. The door to the waiting room opened and Dr. Zeff entered. His alien features made it hard to read his expression, but Maya thought he looked serious. The council has reached a decision, he announced. Please follow me. The 12 humans were led into a vast chamber where 7 aliens sat at a curved table. Maya recognized Dr. Zeff, Commander Vex, and Overmind Kayla, but the other 4 were completely new to her. One looked like a giant insect, with multiple eyes. Another seemed to be made of living crystal. The third appeared to be floating in a tank of water, and the 4th was so strange that Maya couldn't even begin to describe it. Dr. Zeff took his place at the table and gestured for the humans to stand in the center of the chamber. Representatives of humanity, the crystal being spoken a voice like wind chimes. We have deliberated on your performance during the evaluation period. The decision was not unanimous. Maya's heart sank. Not unanimous meant some of the aliens still wanted to eliminate humanity. Commander Vex stood up. I must admit, when these tests began, I believed humans were too violent and aggressive to join the hegemony. Your species has a history of warfare and conquest that concerned many of us. The insect-like alien clicked its mandibles before speaking. The Karathi Empire has observed human behavior for 50 Earth years. We have seen genocide, environmental destruction, and systematic oppression of your own kind. Maya felt like she might be sick. It sounded like humanity was about to be condemned. But then Dr. Zeff stood up. However, the tests revealed something we had not fully understood about human nature. Yes, humans are capable of great cruelty, but they are also capable of extraordinary compassion. The floating alien in the water tank spoke in a voice like flowing liquid. What impressed the Oceanic Collective most was not your individual performances, but how you changed each other. When some of you initially showed selfishness, others influenced you to choose kindness instead. Overmind Kayla's multiple voices whispered together. The Nexari have never seen a species demonstrate such capacity for growth and learning during an evaluation. Most species behave consistently throughout all tests. You evolved. Maya dared to hope. It sounded like some of the aliens were impressed with humanity's performance. The crystal being continued. The deciding factor was your choice in the final test. When forced to choose between saving your own species or saving those most in need, regardless of species, you chose compassion over tribal loyalty. This has never happened before, the strange, indescribable alien said in a voice that seemed to come from everywhere at once. In the history of the hegemony, no species has ever chosen to save aliens instead of their own kind when resources were limited. Commander Vex looked directly at Maya. Young Waitress, your simple act of giving food to a stranger has led to something remarkable. The Council has voted to grant humanity probationary membership in the hegemony. Maya felt her knees go weak with relief. Probationary membership? Dr. Zeff explained. Full membership will require humanity to demonstrate continued growth in compassion and cooperation. You will be monitored for the next 50 Earth years. If you continue to show progress, you will become full members of the galactic community. What does that mean for Earth? Ambassador Clark asked. The crystal being answered. It means humanity will have access to hegemony technology, medicine, and knowledge. You will be protected from hostile species. Most importantly, you will no longer be alone in the universe. But, Commander Vex added sternly, if humanity regresses, if you return to your old patterns of violence and selfishness, probationary status can be revoked. Maya stepped forward. What can we do to make sure that doesn't happen? Dr. Zeff looked at her with what might have been a smile. You can continue doing exactly what you did in Tony's diner. You can choose kindness over selfishness, compassion over indifference, and love over fear. The insect alien clicked again. The Karathi Empire suggests that humanity establish institutions dedicated to promoting the values you demonstrated during the tests, centers where kindness is taught and practiced. The Oceanic Collective recommends starting with your most vulnerable populations, the water alien added. How a species treats its weakest members reveals its true character. Over the following months, Maya found herself in a position she never could have imagined. Frank Sullivan had offered her a job as Director of Human Compassion Initiatives, a new organization funded by Sullivan Industries and supported by the hegemony. Maya's first project was transforming Tony's Diner into something special. Instead of just a restaurant, it became a community center where people could get free meals, job training, and help with problems like finding housing or medical care. The idea was simple. Treat everyone with dignity, just like Maya had treated Frank that night. The concept spread quickly. Within 6 months, there were compassion centers in 100 cities around the world. Each center was run by local people who understood their community's needs, but they all followed the same basic principle. Help anyone who needs help, no questions asked. Maya often worked directly with Dr. Zeff, who had been assigned as the hegemony's liaison to Earth. He helped design programs that would encourage humans to think beyond their own immediate needs and consider the welfare of others. The key, Dr. Zeff explained to Maya during one of their meetings, is to make compassion normal instead of exceptional. In most human societies, kindness is seen as something special that some people do sometimes. But for hegemony membership, it needs to become something all people do regularly. Maya understood. You want it to become automatic, like breathing. Exactly. When helping others becomes as natural as helping yourself, your species will be ready for full membership. The changes weren't always easy. Some humans resisted the new programs, claiming they were too expensive or that they encouraged laziness. But Maya kept remembering her grandmother's words about sharing what little you have, and she kept moving forward. 1 year after the tests, Maya stood in the original Tony's Diner, now transformed into the flagship Compassion Center. The walls were covered with thank you letters from people who had been helped. Photos showed families who had found homes, children who had received medical care, and elderly people who were no longer alone. Frank Sullivan joined her, looking around at the bustling center with satisfaction. Your grandmother would be proud, he said. Maya smiled. I think she would, but this is just the beginning. Through the window, Maya could see one of the hegemony ships in the sky above Detroit. It was no longer a threat, but a symbol of hope and friendship. Humanity had passed the test, not through superior technology or military might, but through the simple choice to care about others. Dr. Zeff had told Maya that the hegemony was watching, other young species now, looking for signs of the same compassion that had saved humanity. Some of them might pass the test and some might not. But Maya knew that humanity would be ready to welcome new members to the galactic community when the time came. Because that's what you do when you have more than you need. You share it with others, just like her grandmother had taught her. And sometimes sharing a simple sandwich with a stranger can change the entire universe. Maya looked up at the stars and smiled. Humanity was no longer alone, and the future was full of possibilities she couldn't even imagine. all because she had chosen kindness when no one was watching. Except, as it turned out, someone was always watching.